know what's going to happen when I'm in New Jersey. I don't even know what the setup's going to be because I'm not bringing this bookshelf because I got to let go of things I like sometimes. You
And
know?
it's like, this really ties to cultiness for me because cults pop up in times of social turmoil when people are uncomfortable, right? When
Yes.
everything's confusing
Yes.
and people want clarity, right? They want to be sure. And that's what cults do, right? They promise you this. Like, if you can be perfect, right? If you can do all of this stuff and be perfect, here's your like assured promise, right?
And
After
that's
some
future
space
faking.
travel. Right.
Future faking, right? Like the
And,
narcissist. Yep.
you
Yep.
know, and I have to tell my survivor community a lot, right? People, when they get out, they're so afraid, right? They're afraid to make any decisions. And it's like, hey, welcome back, right? To the
Yeah.
world where you are never guaranteed a tomorrow. Like, you have no idea what is going to happen, right? Every
Right.
day is uncomfortable if we look at it, right? Like, and that's what's hard for people, is to just sit with like, yeah, it's just gonna kind of suck now. Hello, friend.
Hello. Hello.
How's it going?
I mean, it's going, if people are viewing this, you could see my bookshelf is empty. I am in the process of moving back to New Jersey. And I think, a lot of it had to do with my process of going through the tenets of white supremacy on my own. Like, it took me over a year to do it, but I realized the last one I did was right to comfort. And I realized so much about group and community through the process as well, but also how did this affect me and my right to comfort in isolation? And when you step away and you remove yourself from your community, then you kind of give yourself this out, almost like to be able to give up on trying to figure out how you fit and how to set boundaries and deal with the negative impacts. I had a reason to leave New Jersey. It was job related, blah, blah, blah. But after a while, I just kind of accepted it and was like, no. And I think differentiation is important. And a lot of the cultiness of removing myself from where I was happened with me, and how I learned a lot about corporate cults and stuff. But yeah, so the moving process has been interesting, very uncomfortable. Would have been a lot easier in my right to comfort to just stay longer and not do a whole journey again where it's all on me. Because when I moved out here, I was in a dynamic with a corporation and they paid for everything and made it so easy and nice and, bait and switch. And so I don't know, it's like there's so much growth in the little things sometimes, whereas also taking control of your decisions and like not feeling like things are happening to you. I feel like white women, and there's a reason I'm saying this, like white women, there's a lot of connection to like, the way things are kind of happening around you are happening to you, and not realizing, like when you're putting SOS and please help us and do you see the state of things? It's like, how are you making yourself uncomfortable to be more comfortable in the end, aside from just saying kind of like, well, I had to, and then this, and, making difficult decisions and making yourself uncomfortable for that. But honestly, just like sometimes we pamper ourselves into paralysis. Right? We give ourselves the right to stop moving because we can be overwhelmed or say this is too difficult or, list off all the reasons why you shouldn't. Okay, those are the reasons why that would be difficult. Struggling is a thing. That's okay. Damsels can be in distress and they don't need saving from some stranger. What does that stranger have knowledge of and awareness of that you don't have? Like, what is the distress? How can you move forward? I don't know, just saying something different, having your own opinion and saying, okay, this may come with a little something, and I don't know exactly how it's going to be. Like, being unsure doesn't mean you're insecure, right? I'm secure in the decisions I'm making, although I am unsure how. I don't know what day the people are going to come take all these boxes I have, right? I am unsure because I tried to figure this out in a way that works best for me, blah, blah, and price-wise and stuff. But I don't know what's going to happen when I'm in New Jersey. I don't even know what the setup's going to be because I'm not bringing this bookshelf because I got to let go of things I like sometimes.
And it's like, this really ties to cultiness for me because cults pop up in times of social turmoil when people are uncomfortable, right? When
Yes.
everything's confusing
Yes.
and people want clarity, right? They want to be sure. And that's what cults do, right? They promise you this. Like, if you can be perfect, right? If you can do all of this stuff and be perfect, here's your like assured promise, right?
And
After
that's
some
future
space
faking.
travel. Right.
Future faking, right? Like a
And
narcissist. Yep.
you
Yep.
know, and I have to tell my survivor community a lot, right? People, when they get out, they're so afraid, right? They're afraid to make any decisions. And it's like, hey, welcome back, right? To the
Yeah.
world where you are never guaranteed a tomorrow. Like, you have no idea what is going to happen, right? Every
Right.
day is uncomfortable if we look at it, right? Like, and that's what's hard for people, is to just sit with like, yeah, it's just gonna kind of suck now. Things are just,
Right.
um
And you can focus, like what I like to say is a focus on the BS, but focus on the bright spots. Like what is beautiful. Black people we find joy in all situations because it is there. But if you are determined to stay put, then you will find the reasons to stay put. You can talk yourself. We are very good at that. And I think, it's almost like white women or women in relationships kind of get this pass to be right a lot because you have a feeling about something, right? If you feel emotionally about it, that's valid. It's a valid feeling. That doesn't mean it's correct. You you were never sure. And I think it's also calling the bluff of, even when you were making those decisions you felt sure about, like they weren't really your decisions, so you didn't feel responsible for them, but you were still making them. Like you were still there the whole time, even though it
right.
felt like someone else's decisions you were making because it was a performance for the role of whatever the thing you were in. It was still you there. So like imagine if you put all that effort and energy into being your own manager, or like
Yeah.
speaking your own praises in that way and saying,
But
I've
that
been through all of this. I can do this.
yeah. And that's what's so difficult for people, I think, right? Is to just like, I don't know, I used to call this front of the room advantage, where like when you hear a speaker being introduced, right, you're usually sitting there going, wow, like that's super impressive, right? And like
Mm.
that person wrote that bio themselves, like that, like
Yeah.
but like when you were saying, right, like you can do the things, right? Like you can go and put yourself places and make yourself uncomfortable, and like, neither of us got to where we are right now by like,
In fact, we're proof.
following a normal path.
Right. We're proof that we tried. If anything, that's what I want so much of my work to be, is like, give up that goal. If I got it, did it, I succeeded, I made it in. Yeah, I didn't do it perfectly, but like, if I believed in it and I tried really hard, and y'all with more information, and you're not going to like, I was bought in, and it's still just the best case scenario. It crushes you. You are a human resource for a made up system, an organization. You are a human resource. That's insane. You are an energy source. It's a vampiric system, whatever, it serves only to take. It doesn't consider you no matter what it says, but it will. And like, we have to stop romanticizing those things and instead just like humanize ourselves and humanize those systems, or where they are, where they're people and where they're not people. Like, oh, this company saw me and found me. No, it didn't. That's not. It was just like a person on TikTok who works at that company who was like, hey, boss, you heard of this lady? Like, that's what's happening, right? Nike isn't discovering people. That's not a thing. It's like the church, the company, the organization. I just been thinking a lot about. Anyway, like when you make sense, people get really uncomfortable. And I realize that like people know that. Like if you're in an online space, you have to realize like there are people who believe the thing that makes sense just like you, but for some reason people get really mad. I don't know. When I said white women are the men of women, people
Well,
immediately got it, but also immediately were
yeah,
upset.
I think so. I think you and me both, like, I've been having this experience of realizing that, like, both when I say the military is a cult and when I say Alcoholics Anonymous is a cult, and then people expect me to then, like, comfort them or make it better or say it has to be this way. And
not
instead I'm
all.
just like, no, that's just the conversation we don't want to have, is that 1% of the military is in a cult.
There's like
You
this thing
know,
about giving it power or something. And yeah, yes, I
I
think
just
it
think,
gives it, but it doesn't actually change. Talking about it doesn't change the system. It changes awareness levels.
yeah.
It changes how we understand it to be systemic and not personal when we hear other people say it. And what they want is for you to think it's your mindset that's the problem. It's individual people's decision making that has led us here. Maybe the founding fathers and the people who benefited that, the 1%. This is just an MLM gone too far.
Yeah.
And it's just the 1% does well. We all are trying to get in now. And like, you have to get out that company. Stop thinking that corporation, that thing is going to give you answers, like that there's a goal to achieve that will give you that goodness, that title, that sort of that comfort. Now you can rest. Now you can never worry about blah 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 again. Sorry. I don't know if you've realized that's not happening. Like, and then you'll never have to worry about, have you seen those people? Because I watch reality shows. Bethany Frankel made this big deal, like a huge deal with her company in one episode of her spinoff. And it was like, we'll never have to worry about money again if you do this, right? Throw the blackberries. We can afford so many. She's still working today. That was like 10, 15 years ago. And she is hustling. Like, I don't know, but that just tells me, oh, that's not a goal that it's not even good. It's not a goal worth achieving. We have to give up your goals of goodness and start new. Get a new one now that you're aware of stuff. Like, I never thought I'd move back to New Jersey, but I never really thought about it. Cause I don't know, I think maybe in some places it's like, well, I've moved out, I've progressed. But it's like, yeah, you did that. Now let's go bring that energy back to where you were fed and nourished, and like be around the people you love and care about that support you, and just trust that you'll have whatever boundaries you need, blah, 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 blah. You're new. Future me doesn't know. I mean, future me does know things I don't know. Today, me, I don't need to figure out what it's going to look like. I can't. I'm not psychic. I'm not. Miss Cleo wasn't even psychic. But, she wasn't even Jamaican, but that's a whole other thing.
I don't even know who that is, because
You know, Miss Cleo, call me now.
didn't
That
grow
makes
up
sense.
here.
You don't. Miss Cleo, she was like, it was these infomercials like always say, call Miss Cleo now. And it was a fake Jamaican accent, and you would pay by the minute, and she would tell you some stuff. And it was a whole thing. So there's like documentaries on her and stuff.
I'm like, that one I don't even know if that's the Whiteness or the cult,
Honestly,
that I didn't get to like watch.
Could be a blend. Could be a blend, because she is Black. It is a Black people. It could be, like just the perfect intersection of where we are and the time frame. But yeah, Miss Cleo. That's funny that I love that.
So I want to tell you, I talked about Black Hebrew Israelites.
Oh.
Yeah, it went well.
You know what's funny? Because they're such a loud, they're so aggressive. I'm sorry. They're so aggressive. They're like known for yelling at people. So, and specifically white people. So I'm curious how that went.
I mean, it was, all of the kind of cult responses that you would expect, but then I responded to a comment by a Black person saying, my cousin is in Black Hebrew Israelites. She says it's not a cult, but what do you think? And I mean, my response was basically, look, when they have to preface it with "it's not a cult," like that's a cult pattern. And then I just only talked about like the us versus them, and how when we see minority cults, specifically in Black cults in America, they can use this us versus them mentality to get you in, right? And it's like, it's real. Like white America does hate you. That's a real thing. That's a real thing that people were dealing with, especially in the 30s and then the 60s when these significant cults were popping up. Always, yeah. But so anyway, that's all I said. And it was just a mix of Black people being like, thank you for addressing this. And then a lot of Black people being like, stay out of our groups. And I just let the comments kind of go.
Yeah, like if Okay, listen, too late. I already said something. One,
Oh, yeah.
and like,
And
you know.
the other part that I addressed was like, because this was a very interesting crack in the brainwashing for me when I read a book about the Nubian nation.
Mhm.
I've seen Nuwapian and Nuwabian, so I'm still like
Oh.
not sure which one it is. But there's a book called The Community. We do it
Oh,
again
well,
next
yes.
month
Is
in
that
book
the one
club.
Mark Lamont Hill was in? I think that is the. Did they build the pyramid in Georgia? Is that the one you're talking about?
I don't know,
Oh, okay, maybe.
but so I added this one like very deliberately. When you put together a list of cult memoirs, it's a lot of white women, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was like specifically looking for a memoir by a Black woman, and someone recommended this memoir, The Community, right?
Mhm.
And so Black Muslim cults, I grew up in a white Christian cult, and like I have never read a better description of my own childhood, including
Mhm.
in my own book, right? Like growing up in these communes. And so
I'll
that's
have to check that
another
out.
thing that I like to bring up is like, because experts have said that all cults are ultimately the same, and basically like coercive control always happens
Yeah.
in a very similar way, we know that like there is a single like cult baby experience or generic cult baby experience, right? And I think one of the things that I'm actually doing is helping to build the language for that. You know,
Mhm.
say
Mhm.
things like, if you were told you were in this world but not of this world, right? Or if you were sacrificed for the mission by the adults in your life.
Yeah, because how you are used as a child within the cult is another caste system within this
Mhm.
group. So just like
Mhm.
with every other group,
Mhm.
there's going to be subdivisions. And if you
And
are born into it, you are not treated or have the same experience
uh-huh.
as someone who entered one or,
And that's
voluntarily
even
chose one.
you can tell me who said this. I think that the oppressor best understands or the oppressed best understands the oppressor.
Yeah, I don't know who said
I
it, but
okay,
that makes the most sense.
I
I
thought
mean,
it was a Black woman.
probably,
That
probably.
yeah, to be
It's one of
fair, I
those
thought
things that just
we
makes
had
sense.
talked about it before, but I can't recall the name. But so like I think about like the women from cults, I think understand cults better because women are quite often a servant class, right? A more oppressed
Yep.
class, which also means that the cult babies, like the children from the cults,
Mhm.
understand cults even at an additional level, right? Because
Yep.
children are the most oppressed.
Mhm.
And that's true in our society too, right?
I think about also like there are videos I'll see where it's twins, right? Twin women, and they switch clothes or switch position or something, and have their kids come in and see which one. And a lot of the times the kids know exactly which one it is. Like you don't know the things they know about you. And like I remember one video, the kid smells their leg and knows which one is the mom. And it's like their survival is based on knowing you in ways you don't know yourself. What's it sound like when you walk up the stairs? It's, and you have no reason to be aware of that. And it's okay that you're not aware of that. But when they're telling you, no, you smell different than your sister, you don't get to decide, no, I don't. Because that toddler, whether they can put that into language or not, has information worthy of considering and giving autonomy and space. But in
Yeah.
a caste system,
Yeah.
you're just an under, right? You're a
Well,
lower.
yeah, and that's why children are often so like violently controlled in cults,
Yeah.
because kids know stuff, right? And but
And
we're
they say
treated
stuff.
like we're these absolute blank slates, and exactly, kids say stuff, right? Kids spit things out or come up with things.
And they say stuff that might, cause some cognitive conflict. And then instead of you dealing with that, you get dysregulated and punish that child.
Mhm.
And that is moralized. Like you get to beat your child for acting up. Like that make what? And
Speak about right to comfort, right?
yeah,
Parents who parent in like an authoritarian style, and it's
to
all
train
about
up a
like the
child.
kids being well behaved.
I found a copy of the book to how to train up a child or something, which is like peak white people in my opinion. Like I don't think black people know that this type of stuff is going on, blanket training and all that, because I'm blown away sometimes by things. But that they wrote it in a book, that it is more or less, and then they use the book of the Bible, worship of the written word, passed down and used to say, well, this is good for the kid. This is how you psychologically torment them into never bothering you in the future, to moving immediately. Like the language is so clear. I want white people to read their own people's stuff. When you want to, how do we, the book is 30 years old. If I look it up right now, there's no hate pages for it. There's no, we gotta dismantle this. They're selling it right now on Amazon.com. It's obedience training and stuff. And people are buying it. They put out a 30th anniversary. White women, this is and I feel
horrible.
like only some people would see this book and go, yes, this is an okay thing to do. But I'm saying, like, you're creating little sociopaths. Because from my understanding and what I've read and heard, psychopaths are born, sociopaths are created, they are made. And I feel like what's happening is you're having these white people get these books and go, see, it's fine, I can do it. And that's how you justify it to an enabler who maybe isn't a psychopath. But it's why we can do blanket training on our infant, our 6-month-old baby, hitting them for trying to get a toy. Like, and now that kid doesn't process their emotions and believes that they, have to prove themselves to.
Well, and then
By
not
not
only
being.
do you end up with school shooters, right?
Right.
It's just
And the
kids who've been incredibly abused, but also this exact kind of parenting is how you raise people who accept fascism, right? Like
Mhm.
this has been authoritarian parenting has been directly tied to people who grow up and accept this kind of like top
It's
down
familiar.
leadership. Exactly. And oh my gosh, professors who go to teach at BYU who are like not Mormon from Mormon backgrounds will talk about how like it's so eerie because the students just don't ask questions. Like it's just, you just sit there and take it in,
And
because you
that
are
is
not.
my concern with white people, right? Like this how we started this, right? Like the sitting and the waiting for instruction. But think about the type of person who is willing to instruct people like this and feels comfortable and excited and confident and telling you exactly what to do when they are lacking in a self-security and they're using, what is their incentive to sell this to you, whatever it is. This self-help is a crazy thing. You think about that you're purchasing a book on self-help. You need this person, and at the same time I'm trying to provide what I think is kind of like self-help, like no, help yourself. And
Yeah.
everybody else is like, well, buy this book. And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. And then I want to write a book and it's similar, but the point is I will never tell you exactly what to do. I follow questionanity.
but
I question first.
and that is the thing, right? The crux of the matter. And I had this realization, it was like tied into doing my audiobook. Like they had told me that I had the right to audition, right? And then I didn't get asked to audition. It was just literally the director of Macmillan emailed me and was like, do you want to do it or do you want us to get an actress? And I had been determined, like, I'm going to do it. And as
Yeah.
soon as the question was up to me, I was like absolutely paralyzed with fear, didn't know which one to choose.
Really?
And this was kind of the exact same time in my life where I was like reaching out to all these old mentors and like asking them for advice on what to
Oop.
do with my life.
Oop.
And what I realized was like, for the last 20 years, I have been looking for a mentor that will tell me exactly what to do with my life.
Yep.
And that's not a mentor. That's a
No,
cult leader.
that's a leader or something. That's a dad. That's, because they teach us to go from dad to like teacher principal to like the police politician, always going to permission, getting permission from someone on how to live your life and who will you tell me I did a good job? Who can I? But instead saying, what if it was just you? What do you want to do? And it's so simple, but it is not given. We like I will talk about romance scams. The romance is the scam. Man is right in the middle and is right there, right? And from Rome, these men love Rome. It's not that great. It's just a place. And Greek and Romans and Catholic Church and all that stuff, right? But this hopeless romantic. And it reminds me, like, I think about this one sticks in my head, like the hopeless romantic is insane. Swept me off my feet, take care of me, kill you? No, take care of her. You know, which one do you mean? Take care of her. But like Mike, so I'm listening to Mike Rinder's memoir, I guess. I think it's a memoir about Scientology. And he said something, he said, hope for the future is a great motivator, right? But he was saying it as like, it'll get better in the future. Like, just do this and then it'll get better. And that's kind of what the narcissism and narcissists and cult leaders use, is like, just get through this. It's future faking. That's different than love bombing. And people don't realize, like, love bombing is, you're so great, we need you in here, we're so happy to have you, you're special, we are hiring you because you're so amazing. Future faking is, okay, we'll talk about it in Q1 of next year, that raise. I totally agree with you. It's just blah, 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 blah. We'll talk about it here. Or, I know we're going through a rough time, but I see having kids with you. That's just you're just saying this stuff. And it's like, oh, well, in the future. It just is a delaying of you dealing with the conflict at hand. You interacting with this idea. And of course, the system's going to want you to just hold on a little bit longer, just one more thing, real quick. Just this. And it's on you to quit. I'm going to tell you, my self-help goal is grieve your goals, give them up. You can pick them back up. I said, I'm dropping the book writing, right? I'm not writing a book. I made a whole declaration about it because I had to tell myself, because I was going to do it for the wrong reasons. Anyway, I was going to do it to prove, and then it's just a whole forcing myself, and that feels so familiar and like, oh, okay, someone's going to tell me I did a good job, let me look at these numbers, they're going to tell me if I'm doing a job. No, actually, it's when you look back at like 8-year-old you and then look forward at 80-year-old you, and you think, what would they think? Like, zoom out and see yourself. Like I said, zoom out, not up, time-wise, time and space, this way, and make the more interesting choice. Because I always thought, I'm going to do something interesting. And then I grew up and I was like, well, maybe business school is a way to find myself into something interesting. No. I mean, kind of. Trust
but
the journey
because you
and
made
whatnot,
a different choice.
Yeah.
I, for example, many times after I got out of the military, almost did an MBA. Right? Just because that's kind of like what you're supposed to do when you're an officer. You get out. I have a 4-year GI Bill. Like, I should use it. And I didn't, because those classes just seem so boring to me, right?
There's so much I could say about that.
And then it wasn't until I picked my topic to study, right, which I thought was leadership and culture, but ended up being cults. And then by the time I knew what I wanted to study, I went back to school. I did only things I wanted to study. And I loved that I got to do it like that, but it was because I was like, I'm already doing all this study on my own. I might as well go enroll in a university and get that, Harvard degree.
Yeah, but it makes sense for what you are trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, I would never be on TikTok if it wasn't for me trying to do something similar.
I still have that GI Bill, by the way, and now I'm like, well, I'm writing a musical. And oh my gosh.
Do you know?
Babe, what does GI stand for? GI is slang for soldier.
Yeah.
Like, out of World War II, but I don't actually know off the top of my head what it
Isn't that interesting, though? Because in the Mike Rinder memoir, so many letters, Scientology, like, it wouldn't even make sense. It would be just like historical, and he was like, the H, whatever. Like, they would just make letters out of stuff. And I'm like, this is one of the cultiest cues you can have. You are literally just putting letters. This way you're not saying it. Even like FBI, CIA, we just make it letters so that we're not really talking about what are they doing.
Bureau and even of investigation. Yep.
Yeah. The Bureau of what are we investigating? Who, what, how can we What separates them from regular police? Like, it's not clear. There are ways that language could be clear. And I think realizing that for myself and realizing, like, oh no, these are signs it's not an actual good product if you have to confiscate what you're talking about to make it that you have to dedicate yourself before you even know what you're talking about. You have to be dedicated enough to learn this language before knowing if it's worth anything good. Because I think about even like FBI or whatever. I was listening to this lady who was in the feds, ended up marrying a guy who was a part of the cartel and they never even knew. They did all this research and didn't even know. Anyway, and the things that they're doing there in the name of investigation, like tormenting the actual FBI people, making them watch beheadings, that was done in Nexium. Like, to gain mental strength, torture them, kidnap them in the middle of the night, troubled teen style, take them, drop them in the forest, and to make sure they know what universe are we living in where this is necessary.
The Army does that to pilots.
I can't. I'm sure. I mean, but you call it something special. You make someone a CEO, and now they're no longer a slave owner.
Just
you put letters on
it.
The
whole idea that like mentally toughening yourself up for crazy disasters like is helpful, and then no one pays attention to the amount of trauma that goes on. Right? Like it's
just... to train up a child. It's literally to train up a child grown-up version. It's called how to create
it's like
an enslaved person who doesn't run away.
Even with the military, right? Like everyone focuses on, oh, PTSD and trauma if you went to war and if they think what you experienced in war was traumatic enough. And no one looks at like the training. Like you don't think, running around every day going, when my right foot hits the ground, all I hear is that killing sound, like affects people, like rushing it dummies with bayonets saying kill, or the Marines do red blood makes grass grow or something. Marines have their craziness. I mean, you're having yourself broken down to be turned into,
they're protecting us.
I like to say that the military like radicalizes or programs individuals to conduct violence on behalf of state. Right? Like that's
against who? And like they say it as if we need it. There are people, it becomes their wives and the people around them. And then no one's coming to get us.
And then everyone turns around and says, you knew what you were signing up for, right? And I've heard this on reviews of my book, right? From people being like, are we supposed to feel bad that she was assaulted, right? Or like treated terribly as a woman. She knew what she was signing up for. But I also get this from other cult experts when I talk about the military being a cult, right? And they'll be like, well, it's very clear what the organization is when you're signing. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Regardless.
It takes 6 months to onboard into the U.S. Army or the Children of God. And during that time, they're like actively hiding from you, right? Recruiters are allowed to lie to you. The first thing they tell you in training is like, we don't care what your recruiter said, right? You're ours now.
Love bombing. That's the love bombing.
It is.
It's lying.
And the promise of you're going to be part of this great elite organization, blah, 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 brothers and sisters, right? Like the love bombing. And then like, so my experience, right? I get a year and a half of training. 6 months of this is training to be an intelligence officer, right? And 100% of that training was like, here's how you collect information on the enemies. 0% of that training was the other half of my job that I only realized when I got to war in Afghanistan, unable to leave for 365 days, is the other part of your job, which is put together called literally targeting package, right? Here, go get these people. Right? So the part of your job that you're most likely to object to
comes later.
You know nothing about it until you're there and you can't leave.
Transparency. If something is diminished with transparency and sharing access, public access to that information, that is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
To me, and like creating scarcity around something. And but also I think the people who respond that way are abusers. I think you're an abuser if at this point, because I think about it in relation to Diddy, toward the, in the Black community we are having these conversations a lot. Well, she, you're an abuser. I don't care, because if that's what you care about, and if you're not directly the one doing it, you are aiding. Just like when I talk about the sheep's clothing, a wolf in sheep's clothing, if you're the person going, if I say, hey, that thing looks like a wolf in sheep's clothing, and you go, that's rude. Don't say that about them, because you never know. And da da da. As the wolf gets closer and closer to me and my family, you're an abuser. I don't care. Like you are dangerous to people. You made a deal with that guy. I don't care.
Yeah.
Even if it's just in your head, parasocially, you said, I'm like you. If I had it this way, I would do that too.
And then these same people want to turn around and be like, why didn't nobody say anything? You know, we see this in cults all the time, right?
Exactly. Same thing if you say that.
When cults are in the media, right? Like a group only gets labeled a cult when it's in the media and when we can measure the damage in bodies, right?
It's all hindsight.
And then people are like, why didn't anyone do anything? And yet,
and that's never actually true.
Right. In every cases of these big cults, right? The experts have been warning about it forever.
Yeah.
But like my whole platform, right, was you can go, we call the military left of the boom, right? You can go before the disaster happens.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to predict the disaster, right, you can go before that and you can just warn people, right? So I can look into groups that everyone is saying this is culty, and I can break that down and I can help people understand. Like, we don't have to wait for a mass, right? But then are people cool about it? No. You're like, it's how dare you, blah, 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 you know? Yeah. And it's just, I mean, nothing bad happens if you call someone an abuser and they're not an abuser, like,
they're fine.
Unless you have more power over them, it doesn't do anything, right? If you compare a group to a cult, it doesn't do anything if it's not a cult.
It tarnishes a reputation. That's not a real thing. That's just imaginary brain thoughts from people who don't even know who you are. Like, it's just, they're hypothetical. And I gotta, those aren't the loudest. Those are the loudest people, but they don't represent most of us, or at least what I think, like, most of us would agree with, right? But like why didn't she say anything? You're an abuser. Why don't kids speak up when this happens? They do. Shut up. You're an abuser. The fact that you think they don't speak up, it's that no one believes them. They are they're looking for attention. Okay, maybe that's something to look into then. Well, they just want attention. That's to train up a child type stuff. This is an enslaved being that is actually not. In Scientology, they say they're just like small adults, which is a ridiculous thing. They treat them like adults, but you're saying that they're smaller. So you're acknowledging that they're not adults, but like only in ways that work for the cause, right? Like just in ways to denigrate them.
Yeah. And also, like, the same way that when adults go through trauma, like, that shows up, whether you talk about it or not, like, that is also true for children, you know? Right. So, like, I read this one book that a woman's, like, adult abuse triggered her memories of her abuse as a child. And she's in therapy and she's saying, I don't think my mom ever knew about it. And her therapist was like, no, like, you were 5. Like, there were signs. Like, there were signs. There was things that changed in you, right? Like, it's not really possible that a, like, attached, interested parent is going to miss signs of abuse in, like, young children, right? Because they say stuff, right? And it's just so different, right? The energy, all of that stuff.
Right, because it's not like you keep acting the same, like you aren't being traumatized at night or whatever, or haven't had a thing. And if you're not saying anything, if they aren't saying anything, they don't feel safe to. So that's a different abuse. That they don't feel emotionally safe to tell you if that's what's actually happening, which is usually not the case, because it's something slips. You should be listening.
Well, and
Um,
this is why, you know, even it for my book, like I had such a problem letting them use the photo that they wanted to use. If you're watching us, you can see this photo of me as a child. And I'm like, everyone looks at these photos and nobody looks at like the dead black eyes on the children every time, and I look at
yeah,
that and you're like, how are these adults like looking at us? Like, if you see the photo of that baby not crossed out, it's like, I don't even understand how a 2-year-old can be that sad. And I was
yeah,
that 2-year-old, like, how could they not like see it and see how upset we were? And that was something even later when at 15, when I was like, I had broken some rules, I was being thrown out, but then they decided, because we were kind of like famous and important, they didn't know if they wanted to do that. And my mom like takes me privately and she's like, you should go, right? Like, we already set up a place for you, you should go. And I asked her later after she was out of the call, and she was like, oh, I could just see how miserable you were,
hmm.
there with us and like in that world. And so I wanted you to get away. And the ability to just look at your child and tell that they're not happy,
And
and
not
like, and
want
pay
them to
attention
be
to
that
that
way.
and pay attention to that. Yeah,
Because I
exactly.
because I do think there's a subset based epigenetically maybe on slavery that want to see suffering from their children, because there is this like having joy is sinful type of vibe. That's what I'm getting. Like, joy is in suffering, serving, and saving, only being quiet, right? But your mom
Yeah, that's
didn't
what
have those traits of like the sadism and the like, well, children deserve to be unhappy until future you grows up, moves on, and gets over it. There's just this, there's never an acknowledgement of your personal experience. But
yeah.
there is a
No, I
lot of
mean,
people who just,
what I
the joy, the
what
Ruby Frankie
yeah.
of it all.
That's what I describe about like the worst thing about growing up in the children of God is no spontaneous moments of joy, right? Like, we were never
Mm,
just allowed to be kids. Like, so it's not this specific abuse or that specific abuse. It's just
yeah.
like when my child was 3 years old, I had this moment, she's at gymnastics and they're going from one thing to the other and they're supposed to all put their hands on each other's shoulders and like walk very nicely. And they go past the sponge pit and my kid just throws herself in, and then another kid does, and like, my heart dropped. I was like out of my seat and then I like
Mm,
kind of caught myself. And the
yeah.
teacher comes down. She's like, okay, that's not what we're doing right now. Okay, let's go. And everything was fine. And
Right.
I literally had to like talk my heartbeat back down and be like, she's fine. She's fine. Like, she's not going to go home and get punished more. Like, it's just, she's 3
It's
years old and she had a spontaneous moment of being 3 years old.
it's fine, right? But it reminds me also of, a conversation that happens around graduation time with Black people, is that white people hate the way Black people do graduation. We don't care that you said wait till the end, all names are called for you to clap. I'm sorry. I came here to see my kid. There's 1 second of my kid on the stage. I'm gonna scream. I'm gonna do whatever I want, right? And you can't. And especially this year, and especially I think it was New Orleans. I'm not exactly sure. They busted out, and it's all these Black girls and kids, guys too. I think I just love Black women, and they bust out. Shoes are off. They are on the floor. They are dancing. They are going crazy right after. And it's interesting is that is seen, white, that's where you'll see so much racism in that comment section, and because it's Black kids graduating, experiencing joy, and doing it not at all like white people would do it, not falling in line and walking without emotional reaction as you defeated the odds and your family is here and they're all here to see you, and no, but it is like there's this concept, don't embarrass me in front of these white people, that happens in Black communities that I didn't really get. So that's the code switching, that's why I didn't code switch well. I thought I was code switching because I just wasn't cursing. I don't know what I thought. But it really is like act different around white people. But I just, I have a white mom. I'm always around white people. So That's why I got in the trouble I got into. I didn't last in the cult because I didn't get those unspoken rules. Like a lot of Black people will say, "Oh, I've," so many videos of people just being like, "Oh, look at that white girl go," and then you hear it, and she goes, "Oh, I'm recording." Like she catches herself. Like she shouldn't have said that. And to me, my brain is like, "But you just said what was happening," Or, "Oh, this is like white people mac and cheese," and then I'm still confused. Like, they just know not to say it in front of white people. I didn't know that. But it goes along those lines of, exploding in joy and having these moments in front of people makes them uncomfortable. So historically, it makes sense to have this fear, right? Startling a white woman was a crime. And look how easily y'all are startled. The thought of being startled is enough for a whole get ready with me TikTok story time. But the subjective nature of that, insulting, making grimace, all this type of stuff. Being a human that seems unpredictable to the system. If it, like you said, it's the spontaneous joy. It's not just forced fun, holidays,
Right.
Today is your day
Right.
to enjoy yourself. No, when you feel it, do it. No, that is the opposite of a cult mentality. It's like, if you feel that selfish, shame, feeling, wow, you must not be so strong mentally. In fact, we should probably lock you up. You can't control that. Let's show you some decapitations. And I think what that really does is enforce that there are bad guys. I think that that's why they do that. They want you to fear those people, because I don't think there's any evidence that says this makes you mentally strong. This makes you mentally strong in what way? In opposition to terrorism broad label, right? Terrorists, bad guys, whatever these. And now
Yeah, I mean, and that is, just look at 9/11, right? Just look at 9/11 and then our willingness to go really justify anything in 20 years of war because this was obvious proof that people out there want to kill Americans, right? And that is like what you need, right? So even when you study kind of like totalitarian groups or whatever, like for Castro, right? Bay of Pigs, best thing that could have happened for him.
And it's like
because
the
here was
narcissist.
proof. Here was proof that like America's out to get you, right? And so like if there is an actual attack, if there is an actual bad thing that has happened, think about America in the 80s or 90s, I can't remember, but Adam, the 7 or 8-year-old kid, Adam goes missing, right? And like the entire culture changed, right? To just be like, we can't ever let our children out of sight. And I remember when my child was very young, I was listening to something that said that like there aren't more stranger kidnappings in continental Europe than in the United States. And I was like shocked, because I was like, we are so like, our parenting mode is like, if I look away from my child, they'll be gone. I'll never see them again. And they'll die the most horrible death. Yeah. From this like scary out there thing, when like 1 in 4 children are still being abused in their homes or by their religious leaders, like it's not.
Then none of that says believe your kids. It's actually the opposite. It's control your kids. Like you said, keep them in your eye vision for their best interest. It's police your children, not protect them from people around them. If you really wanted to protect them, the crime stats, you would focus your crime statistics less on Black people and more on cops and domestic violence and, sociopathic kids, and putting metal detectors in the white schools, not in the Black schools. That's not where people get shot up. Like, the answers are pretty simple, but when you're in a cult, the cult answers are simple as well. They're just like, follow the book written by this dead guy. The rules. And they're just tools of manipulation. It's just like, who are the rules for and who are they not for? Because that's all caste system stuff too. Rules are to protect some and bind others. But you're just running around busy, sleepless, and the person in your house is you're the problem. Like, there's no consideration that you might be the problem. Remember when there was also ads like, hey, parents, don't hit your kids. There was a whole song and dance about it. Don't slap them. Give them a hug
Yeah.
sometimes. Ask them how they are. Do you know where your children are? Like, we need to get this together. Maybe the problem is
I mean, the problem is
the
then the
parents.
circular logic of the book, right? So in
Yeah.
2018, the American Psychological Association came out and said, folks, the results are in, right? Hitting kids is bad. Hitting kids is bad. It doesn't do anything good. And enough children now have been raised without being hit that we know that, spare the rod, spoil the child is not a real thing. Right?
Like,
But
we
because
don't
of
hit each
that,
other.
basically
Well,
stupid garbage, spare the rod, spoil the child, right? Like parents have literally been terrified into being abusive to their own children because if you don't do it, you're going to you're going to raise monsters, right? Like that
yeah.
was the concept in the cult, right? And this is like this most
Ugh.
heartbreaking thing to me when you read the stuff about the Branch Davidians in Waco is like the FBI notes on how great and well behaved the children were. And like the 3-year-olds will just sit in the middle of the night for hours watching David give a talk. And you're like, no, that's not
Oh my God.
well behaved. That's terrified, right? Like
Obedient.
3-year-old kids don't sit for hours. Oh my gosh. I think my
I hate so much about that.
6-year-old child asked me what the word obey was, and I was like, yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
winning.
Because what are you talking about? Like, I remember being a child. I didn't need a book. I just remember thinking, hey, hitting my brother doesn't actually make any sense. Like, if he's doing something annoying, because my brain has always thought like this, if he's doing something annoying, actually do something that will change that. Hitting him makes him louder. Like, that doesn't make sense. And then I would just think, and because I was like psychology, but even as a kid, I was like, yeah, but I would be impacted more if you took away my phone than hit me. Like, or took away my access to desserts than hit. Like, he's just gonna hit. I was a child. This doesn't need a study. You know how like black people don't need a book? You were a child, right? Remember being a child? But people are just, they romanticize and they just separate themselves from the conversation and think in hypotheticals, theoreticals, and like, if this were me, I wouldn't want to get in trouble for doing this. And instead
Yeah.
of like, what's the goal here?
But it's also just, and because again, like if you think so much of what corporal punishment is, it's just about the children performing well in public, and like not
Right.
being spontaneously loud, right? Just like standing in nice little lines and blah, blah, blah. And just this like attitude control, appearance control, cult. Like that's what it is.
Oh
And
my
it's
gosh.
just like, I
Be
don't know, like
smaller.
I used to say that, the hardest part about parenting was like my child doesn't have a good little soldier mode to snap into. But like we still have that in our heads as parents, like from how we were raised, right? That
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, at some point you just got to like get serious and let's go. But like, we haven't trained her to be like that, right? Like we haven't obedience trained her. And so
Right.
she just reacts like a human. And let me tell you, any parents listening, like I just at some point was like, she gets a 5-minute warning for everything. If she's like, oh, can I just finish? Yes. Right. And like,
Yeah.
I realized very early on to parenting that demanding instant response is pretty oppressive. And I
Yeah.
think because of like, so in the military, right, I was an officer. So every time I walk into a room and there are no other officers there, the first person that sees me is supposed to call the whole room to attention, right? So that they all stand up and like give me respect. Um, and I just put that so together with like these patriarchal families and the like, you do it the instant you're asked and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, nope, don't like it. And
No.
The
Sorry.
second I realized, like, they want transition time just like we want transition time. Just, like, give her 5 extra minutes. Work that
Yeah.
in. Like, makes everything so
How
much
would you
easier.
feel? And people complain about their kids going, "Mom, mom, 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 mom." But you think you should be able to just go, "Kid," and the kid just,
Right.
that's crazy. Drop everything you're thinking about doing in the middle of because I exist right now and want your attention. It's like, okay. I mean, is that the worst thing that they don't, that they have their own brain? Because think about what that means for them outside of your home. What kind of relationships are they going to get into? Especially when you know that men or boys or whatever are being conditioned to see people as resources for them. How are you going to make sure she doesn't become someone's energy resource?
Yeah.
Because everything outside of the home may kind of lean her in that way because it's easier for society to do with her if she just does what everybody else is doing.
Yeah,
Ah,
and I always put this at the end of my child exploitation talk now, that like teaching children unquestioning obedience sets them up for exploitation. And that's the same
yep,
thing for
yep.
our freaking country and at the government level, right? Like being taught that you just need someone to lead you and guide you and tell you what to do, like
Yeah.
that is why we are here where we're at right now.
Right. And asking the people who have told us over and over again they don't see us as worthy of making our own decisions to allow us to make our own decisions. The ones who think that, what? They are sitting there going, yes, we train up children. And you're asking them for permission to live your life the way you, come on. But we have been conditioned that way. And once I realized to train up a child, like I said, is 30 years old, that means people have been being raised on this. They are 30-year-olds who are as old as this book, who are out here with us doing stuff. That's dangerous. And I think that is a white people problem. And because I used to say kids are the new slaves. And because, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
acceptable property. People is property. And everything you do is in regards to property management. And you don't, I think you treat property better than you treat the people because your property don't speak back, right? And they don't get on your nerves or whatever, and you can say they're an investment. But this like loyalty, dedication is not a virtue. Like being fully dedicated to something outside of yourself, to someone, the romance, whether it's career, being fully, yeah, dedicated. That's like what, that's not a,
I
more
think
is better, sacrificial and serving and give your shirt off your
I think
back.
that's
Stop.
the only answer, at least right now, with like groups being so problematic. It's like you just can't give all of your time or space or energy to like one person or thing or group because
Right.
you know, it's just so easy to exploit you if you do that, to isolate
Yeah,
you and
if you're
exploit you.
putting like all your eggs in a basket or whatever, or saying that this is the one way forward, this is the only way, or there's no way forward. Those are both wrong. Like you don't know. And I think you are more secure if you allow yourself to be unsure because you can be present. And that's, white people are not present people. You're
Mm-mm.
taught anything but, actually, like that whole spontaneous joy, that it is required that you not be in your body right now and be thinking 5 steps ahead or whatever, be strategic and calculated. And you want this job, you got to say things like this, tell a story like this, buy the book. What book? That book? That book is old, written by the oldest of the terrible men. And they're just like, well, and I don't know. You're not, don't be in the business of trying to convince people who need to be convinced.
Yeah. I
Work on
mean,
you first, I guess.
there's an interesting thing about self-help books too, and like this category of book that is pop psychology that is outside of the academic world, right? And like having just spent 5 years on one that comes out soon, like it's not an unbiased thing, right?
Right.
It's I have this idea about my thing that works and I want to show that to you, right? Like
Yeah.
in some way. Like this is my understanding of cults and how it breaks down, and I think there are these culty things in all these groups, so I'm going to show that to you.
See, but that's
I don't have
specific.
to, but I don't have to look at things that don't confirm my argument, right? Like, all I'm saying is that these books are there, just like a memoir is not an unbiased storytelling of my
Retelling
life,
of them.
right? Like,
Hmm.
I am telling you things that I want you to think. I am bringing your attention to things that I want you to notice, right? So, like,
Yeah.
I didn't write this like unbiased researched account. I was like, here's my idea. Here's why I have this idea based on past work. And then
Hmm.
here's my like proposal. But it's still, just to go back to say, like, it's still, there's an agenda here, right? Like, I want to
Yeah.
give you this information in my way.
And I
And
think it's clear what your agenda is. But with
right.
self-help conceptually, when they do this overarching, stop caring as much, be more confident, these are just random people. And they should be saying how I helped myself. And
Yeah.
then I want you to be like, who is this person?
Yeah.
What have they
Well, and
done
then
besides sell this book?
and are they or is what they're telling you reasonable, right? Because I hate it when people are like, I did this so you can do it too. And like, you know what? I
That's
did
a terrible
get a
story.
1 in a million book deal, and like, I can tell you my process, I can coach you on it for money, but like, I cannot guarantee that you get this. And in fact, most people wouldn't get it, right? And like,
No.
when I see
Right.
people that don't do that, I'm like, nope, this is deceptive. I don't like it.
And that's where I need people to like hone in on what are their incentives. I feel like people look at it like, oh, I can help myself. This is about me. Like, you're not doing enough zooming out to see who wrote this book and why. What are they doing? Like when I talk about MLMs and they're inviting you because you're so special into this room and they see something in you. Who is this person? Why are they in this room today on a Friday? They're doing this today. Okay, so if they helped themselves to get in front of you, that means you're helping yourself to do exactly what they it doesn't make sense, but it is a how to based on I did it. But you're just a rando. Just because you did it doesn't mean others, but that's like that whiteness. That's the
And
when
I
it comes to career coaching.
right,
And
and
I
I
don't
think like
like
that's even looks at like what you're saying is like what is the purpose of them putting this out there? Like, why are they doing it? I think people look at people who've successfully built like a self-help kind of empire and they're like, oh, I could be that. But
but like that doesn't make
they don't see like the whole journey and the whole plan and like, do you want to be that? Right. They just see someone who's like making a living telling their story or whatever. Right.
yeah,
And it's
there's not a lot of zooming into like that person's day to day and why are they here in front of me now. You're just so focused on you and your what you can get out of it, the opportunity for you. And that's how I think people get in cults too. Like you're not special and I need you to know that in like a very nice, kind, loving, I care about you way. Like
yeah.
there's no limited time opportunity that says you just got to take this just for you.
Yeah.
Like no, you
And
are the
also
thing.
And also, look, like legitimate businesses will legitimately trade money for value, right? And I feel like, I
Mhm.
always say when I look at these posts that are like, girl on a boat being like, oh my gosh, I could never have understood. And now I'm living my best life. And when I'm like, when I can't tell what you're selling,
Yup.
that's really suspicious to me, right?
Mhm.
Especially if you're out here offering value, like, what are you getting in return? Right. And
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
me, I'm just so clear about that. I'm like, yeah, I'm here offering my perspective on all of these things and my stories and whatever, and it helps people. But like, I'm doing this because I'm making money and it's allowing me to sell my book and keep building future products.
Right.
And I
If
think
someone
like
really has the secret sauce, they're
we're
not selling it.
we're also programmed that like it's suspicious if someone's selling something, like if
Yeah,
individuals are selling something, right? Corporations can sell to us all the time. We're seeing ads all the time.
it's
But when an
acceptable.
individual wants to sell something, people are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But anyway, I think when you're with any kind of like guru, expert, self-help field, like to really look at like what is the person doing this getting out of it?
Yes.
Because
What are they getting
if
out of
it's
it?
not just money that you're exchanging for their value, they're getting something else out of it, right? Like
Yeah.
you're gonna end up in my opinion, giving them your labor in some way eventually.
Your attention and your energy sometimes is enough, right? Because that
Yeah.
is just a slow build to potentially someone else's energy and money eventually, you know, like with the way TikTok works. I just think, yeah, we tend to project what we would do, or like the benefit of the doubt, which
Yeah.
is not a sentence,
Well, and then this
you know,
is
that
even
we need.
true with all the panic videos and memes and stuff going on. It's like, what is that person's goal? Like, that person's
Yeah.
goal is just to make this video go viral so they make hundreds or thousands of dollars. Like, and I don't think like people really understand the content creators and sort of the background business behind that like this is not just someone who's very popular because they're right, like this is their
Yeah.
job. This is their job.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
their job is to scare you all the time, like that's
If
how
their
they're
job is
getting
to get
paid.
your attention, to capture your attention, I need us to look at that language too, to catch your eye, to hook you, you know? But the incentives are to hook. The incentives are to get and just more. It doesn't matter the quality. It's like dollars. There's good money. Usually just means a lot. You know, there is you instead of looking at yourself and going like, how will I feel at the end of this? And what is this actually worth? Am I getting worked up over just another person having a feeling? What's the information behind this? Let me get further context to like bring it down a notch. But we are just in the system, and of course, you know, people look at it and go, what are you trying to get out of me? Because they just see their attention is worth so much when it's individuals. But it kind of reminds me of the like, why didn't she leave? I don't know what it is exactly yet, but the like looking at individuals as the problem and not that you're being lied to so often that you don't know when something is legitimate. You know, you're from a cult and a different type of cult, and you call it a military cult, and you like talking about that. That makes a lot of sense to me. You know, that's not necessarily self-help in my opinion. It's just like information, perspective. That's what we should be trying to get when we research and learn. New perspective, different depth of understanding. Not is this good or not, right or wrong, more judgments, what number is it? But we're just so caught up in what is the opinion to have? I don't know. And I just want to tell people, be wary of coaches. I've gotten, you can't see it in the thing here, but career career fields. You're either in the field or you're in home office. You're either in the house or you're in the field in a corporate environment, right? Because what is corporate America? Where is it? Because we all know what it is, but is it a place? No, it's a state of mind. What does that? I don't know. I get the plantation corporation connection there because it's just maintaining bodies versus maintaining plants and land. Corpse's body and corporation and plantation, like it's right there. They are not creative. Like all the languages there. Like we said, why don't they speak up? Why don't the kids say anything? Like it's all hopeless romantic. Swept you off your feet, girl. Stand up. You know, I think it's just like making use of what we actually have. We don't have to create a new thing or like make new acronyms. Just think, well, you know, let's dig into what is actually happening. White people look into to train up a child, and I can't. Multiple children have died, like confirmed because of this book. And you look up this couple, which is a couple, and they got together when she was too young, and it's all just there. They get to direct this narrative. No one is taking this down.
Is this
Kids
the
have
Debbie
died.
and Michael Pearl? I think, yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
know that like many of my listeners, many of my audience, like have been very traumatized by this. Like you said,
We
like
have no
kids have
idea, by the way.
died,
Black people have no
but
idea.
also, like this is one of the things about children of God that people consider to be so extreme is that he said to spank 6-month-old babies. And here it is, just regular evangelical America. Like this book is a huge cornerstone on how, you know, American millennial white evangelical kids were raised. Like the
that is
same exact way that I was, with the same exact amount of corporal punishment in the same ways, right? And it's That's what's
And that's why we're here.
so weird about my experience is like everyone's telling me my thing is so extreme, and I'm like, but these like evangelical kids or these Mormon kids, like they tell me the same stories.
Right. Like, that's what I've learned. And, I thought as much as white people are overrepresented, y'all represent very specific things, right? It's very intentional, very calculated. The PR is, I don't know, it's not that great. But the way you're non-human to yourselves first is something Black people don't experience, right? It's like going to the basic training. You have to go to basic training before you can go out there and treat people like this. You have to dehumanize yourself and be dehumanized by others before you can then go do that because you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And some people accept it. Some people just say, I guess that's just the way it is. There's all these different levels of what are you going to do when there's a wolf in sheep's clothing around you? Do you just not because you don't want to stand out? You don't want to be the black sheep? What's wrong with being black sheep? It's just black wool, whatever, but the military, the Mormons, you want to talk about crime? The order, the offshoots of the Mormons, the FLDS, the order, the Kingstons, all these things. And you're all focused on Chicago? Go to
And
Utah, please. Save these children.
someone asked me if being a military child was like a cult experience. And I made this video where I was like, there's two different ways of being a military child. There's being a child whose parents were in the military, but they did not militarize the home. And then there's the ones who did. And like, I put this line in On America in my next book that like in The Children of God, we don't play, we march. Which is from damn it, Sound of Music, right? The Von Trapp family children don't play, they march, right? Literal militarized home. And like this is what American white people have been doing for the last 30 to 50 years. And they call themselves Generation Joshua, right? And it's this, we are in God's army and you are perfect all of the time and you are always prepared. And like, we don't dance, we march, right? We don't play, we march. And it's miserable.
And then you get these little serial killers because they don't know
and people like
good.
Carolyn Levitt, the freaking press secretary. Like Carolyn Levitt was raised in this like extreme Catholic version of what we're talking about. And
the first colonizers.
Oh, yeah, here she is, married to a 60-year-old man. Like, and you just look at her and you just like, she's never experienced joy in her life, right? Like you just see that on her face.
And they would say that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. Is like that's what Black people don't have. Like that is not part of it, right? It is joy matters. Joy is something we have because we're human. You are taught and that is why whiteness is so deleterious. Like it just erases everything from you because Black people are out there laughing all loud. God forbid. God forbid. Oh, would hate for that to be me enjoying myself. Like the goals are bad, right? The goals of goodness are to suffer all the time, so give them up. No one comes and gives you the trophy, and even if they did, so what? It just gets dust on your shelf, right? It's just one more thing for you to take care of and maintain and care about and show off in desperate need for your life to have purpose.
And like,
calm down.
There's no inherent benefit in suffering. Being tortured a little bit by the military doesn't actually prepare you for being a prisoner of war, right? Like is that why that's why they do it.
Right. But no, I mean like they equate Blackness and like suffering and like, well, now you get to talk because you were oppressed. Like there's this certain like there's a validation in a hard experience that white people have the virtue of, but we don't understand it that way. But then they see it as like this reverse caste system of you get this, you being oppressed is a stripe or something.
Yeah. I definitely see that attitude in like white women who are just like, I'm so jealous of kind of like, I wouldn't say Black culture, but like being a minority right now, basically, is what it comes down
Right.
to, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, there's nothing special about me as a white woman. Like it's the same thing that the angry white men are going through, being
Yeah.
decentered and being like, well, we are not considered necessarily like the height of beauty or what everybody wants
Yeah.
anymore, right? And it's like
But
I
that's
see
another
that.
instance of like, it was never true. Right? Like you're just aware of it now.
Right.
Like you're just making your own decisions, like we were saying before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, but you always were, but like
Yeah.
you didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
But
Even some of the things you say when white women are like, "Oh, I'm so jealous of your hair. Like it's so cool." And like it was always cool. Like your
right. Like
like your hair was always cool. Black
I
hair has
wasn't
always
waiting.
been cool. You know, like we were the
Yeah.
ones that demonized it and made it not cool, and like now it's coming back and being cool, and like I just think there's this thing that I hear with white women that is just like, well, we're being pushed aside.
Yeah. Like we
I'm gonna
want
give you this. I'm gonna give you this analogy,
queen.
right? I go out dressed in like riotous color every day. My husband is a white MAGA looking dude. He wears these feminist t-shirts, right? So we both will kind of regularly get complimented on our appearance. And then
Mhm.
my 9-year-old will be walking there and she'll be like, nobody ever tells me I look cool. And she's literally dressed all in beige. And I'm like, babe, I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, if you want people to compliment you on looking cool, dress cool. Like, wear something interesting, you know? And
Yeah.
there's, I think we're in this moment where white women have to realize, like, you can just go be interesting. You can just go figure out who you want to be. Like, we talked about this
Yes.
before when they're like, I wish I could wear orange or color. Like, you can. You can. I got
And
this
like you
scarf in
wonder how we got
Spain
there.
and I just wear it, you know?
Right. You can just do it, but you
Right.
have to want to, you have to
But
want to
right,
do it. But
you have to realize that like whiteness is boring and like that cult is silly and not fun. And then, right? So this is the like deconstruction of the cult, but like you have to be out of the cult and then deconstruct the cult and then figure out
yeah.
who you are. And we're
Mhm.
in this phase, I think, where me to a certain extent and lots of women I think that are on this journey, it's still like, okay, so what's our thing? Almost, you know?
Yeah.
And
And that they want it in
that's
a
a
book.
legit, right. But that's a legit thing, but it's not in a book, right? Like it is
Right.
legitimately true. Like our heritage was stolen from us, right? So my DNA got updated and I went from 10% German to 30% German,
Okay.
right?
Well,
And
all
more
right.
Turkish than before. And I literally was like, no wonder I felt so at home in Germany in college. And then even when I go to Greece and Turkey, I was like, more people here look like me, right? And just like all everything in all of those cultures, right, was just completely taken when you become a white person in America.
Ugh.
And there
Yeah.
is no answer for that. And our world is shallow and boring and heartless and,
Yep.
you know, like the same way that like the single strong women who lived outside of like gender norms were literally killed out by the witch hunts. And
Mm.
now we have the first generation of women kind of coming back and being like child free, jobs, money, right? Like
Yeah.
forging their own path. And a friend of mine who's on this path and I were literally just talking about it and we're like, but there's no book for this yet, right? Like she's writing the book right now, like whoever the next leader of that is going to be,
Right.
right?
You're
And I
in
think
it.
like that's what's going on
Yeah.
with whiteness, right? Those of us that are deconstructing whiteness, like then we have to build what our thing is, right? Like we have to go figure out what our culture is, the kinds that we
Even
can.
looking to a book is part of your culture. And in some ways I think that's what it's going to be, is embracing the lack that you grew up with and making jokes out of that.
Making
Like people make white people jokes. That's fine, and it's just accepting it, and that can be its own, because we don't know so much of this stuff. I only learned because I share, but white people aren't taught. You're taught to share in this very like weaponized way. You're not just giving. It's only like, in response to someone sharing. You're like, well, now I'm gonna trauma dump. That's not what we're. It's like connect with other people, but you're not. Yeah, you're not gonna find it in a book because it's in here. You were fine the whole time. Like you are enough, but no book by a white woman right now is gonna. You guys just got here. You're not ready to write a book. But
we were human. We were human the whole time, right? We just have to like figure out what that means now.
And those men were human the whole time. And that's, I think, should help some women. Like those books you're reading, those were men. I always had that in my brain, but that's just because I was like, I humanized everybody all the time. That's how you have to do that. But even books, I'm going to humanize this book because someone wrote it. And they're like, God wrote it. I was like, but you said that's not a person. And they're like, but he told this dude. So I was like, so what was his name? That didn't go well. Hebrew school did not love me. But I had questions, right? But I do think that white women are going to have to challenge that discomfort piece, because you're uncomfortable being perceived. That's the whole color thing, is like, I wouldn't wear color because you see that as dangerous. Being different in a cult, standing out, volunteering, like you were saying, is actually dangerous for y'all in your heads. I don't know how dangerous it actually is, because I think if you were to make a lot of noise, that would scare off a lot of white men. Like they count on you going, oh, no, because we think we know the outcome better if we're nicer to them. But I think if you were like they don't know what to do with that. They don't like unpredictable, spontaneous joy.
Like everyone's afraid of bullies, right? And so you like let them bully you, but very often when you stand up to a bully, like you win, right?
Yeah.
And I think that they're
like easy targets. They're lazy. Don't be an easy, like when you go out in all beige, you're actually an easier target. You're like brightly dressed, you don't even realize it. You know, you're blonde and you're this and you're that. And they're like, look right there. Easy. She's seeking some validation because she's done all these changes to herself to fit in. And the best way to fit in is to be smaller. Factually. There's only one direction to go if you're like increasing your likelihood of fitting in. Smaller.
Yeah. We gotta fight against that, because that's coming back hard too now.
Call that bluff.
What a good conversation today. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you to everybody for listening to Hey White Women, the podcast where we get together and knit and crochet and deconstruct white supremacy like the cult that it is. Please like and subscribe, tell your friends, and if you want to see our beautiful faces, come check us out on YouTube. Check out Rebecca's Patreon and those tenets of white supremacy that she listed.
Thank you.
Links are attached.